Make sure to subscribe to Ben on YouTube so you can stay up to date on everything Humble.
Today's conversation is going to be amazing, folks. I'm glad that you're here with us. I'm glad that you're here to having just hoping you're having a blessed day. And I know a lot of times, especially with what's going on right now in the economy, a lot of folks might be, scared or fearful or pulling back, or they look at their adversity and they say, this is my adversity. I just can't win. I don't have an advantage. I struggled to push forward. And a lot of times we look at this adversity like it's a negative. But I wanted to bring somebody on today who's got an absolutely powerful story. And, I think once you hear it, it's going to give you some perspective over life, some of the things that maybe you're struggling with or some of the limiting beliefs or mindset things. I'm hoping to bring some clarity, some confidence, and just help you understand that regardless of where you come from, regardless of your oppression, your adversity, you ultimately have a choice. And you can make a choice to push for more. You can make a choice to live in faith. Or by default, you can also live in fear. So I want to bring on my guest today, Miss Malissa Jackson-Vogel. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here with me today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for making such a great impact in the world.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Melissa, you've got an awesome story, and we were connected recently here through some mutual friends, and I absolutely just, love your mindset and your thought process when it comes to adversity. And we'll get into a whole thing because I know you've got, a mastermind and a podcast, and a lot of different things that you're doing in the personal development space. But would you kind of start us off by maybe sharing your journey, how it started for you and what kind of got you into this frame of mind? I'd love to kind of hear it from you directly.
Yeah. So my whole mindset is I'm a firm believer that adversities are our gift to the world. So I've had the amazing opportunity of interviewing some of the big world leaders. I've interviewed Grant Cardone, Richie Dolan, Evan Carmichael, as well as a bunch of other people on my Own Your Life podcast. And the reason why it's called Own Your Life, because I'm a firm believer that adversities are your gift to the world. They are your ability to own something that happened to you, that's happening to you, and repurpose them as a gift to other people, a way to connect with one another, a way to become humble, a way to become well-connected and actually understand we can grow through these adversities. So that became my slogan years and years ago when I was about 14 or 15 years old, because I came from a really, really challenging background. But it was something that was further tested on when I was 25 years old. 25 years old, I'd worked up to 4 jobs, put myself through college, finally built my first business enough to be able to quit my last night job. And we just bought our dream house, just bought my dream car, and that was December of 2014, January of 2015, I was lined up interviewing neurosurgeons for an incurable neurological disorder where your brain does not fit into your skull. So I had 12 surgeries back to back, including the brain surgery, and still could only be upright for 3 hours at a time without blacking out after that last surgery. That's when I feel like you get tested on if you really mean what you say and what you declare, and when I had to revisit my life purpose and own that adversity.
Could you help us understand, for those of us that aren't too familiar with this terminology, what does that look like? Like, what are some of the restrictions of that adversity with that? It's a disease, right, that you are diagnosed with. Can you walk us through that so we have a better understanding of that?
Absolutely. So the condition is called chiari malformation. It's when your brain physically does not fit into your skull. So what that means is every single time before I had brain surgery that my heart would beat, my brain would literally be beating against my skull every single time. And what that would do is it would develop scar tissue on your brain, and they had to literally go out there and shave off the scar tissue and open up the back of my skull to try to slow down or stop the beating of the brain into the skull. So symptomatically, what that was it was literally like having vice grips on your skull and smashing it inch by inch to the point where all you wanted to do was cry, but you knew if you cried, it would be worse. So that's the major symptom was migraines. Now that led to, before I got surgery, forgetting how to get home, forgetting how to spell my name, forgetting a lot of things. I lost mobility of my right hand. I lost mobility of my right foot. So it was something that was very intense, and they still do not know to this date if I had an undiagnosed stroke spontaneously. So it's really terrifying. Symptomatically similar to multiple sclerosis, if people are familiar with that.
And how long did you struggle with this before you started getting the brain surgeries? And how long did it take before maybe you had a little bit of easement and relief?
Yeah. So I got into a car accident when I was 9 years old, which is maybe symptomatic. So it was already there, something I was born with, but it made it asymptomatic when I was 9 years old. So it took them 16 years of misdiagnosis of allergies, of whatever it was, until they figured out like, oh crap, we need to do brain surgery. Your brain doesn't fit into your skull. So it was a very long process. And then for that recouping process afterwards, it wasn't a cure-all. There is no cure. After the last surgery I had in California, I can only be upright for 3 hours at a time. So I had to start implementing habits and systems around the disability to get it to the point where I'd be able to perform on a regular basis.
So let me just dissect that a little bit. So what you're saying is that you had to create habits. It wasn't a matter of like, oh, I have a choice. I have to create a cool habit. This is great. It's going to be life. There was a necessity for you to create habits just so you could live, just so you could live with some comfort, just so you can move forward. So what did those kind of habits look like? And what kind of habits did you have to develop during this time?
Yeah, and to dive into the situation in which I built them, my house was a disaster. My financial situation sucked. And I kept getting up every morning. I'm like, I hate where I'm at in my life. I want to change. And I meant it with all seriousness. I really, really wanted to change. But I'd go to try to clean my house, and then I would be jacked up and I'd be bedridden for like 3 days. So I wouldn't be able to move afterwards because I would overexert myself. So it was that point that I decided, okay, what I can do is I can do small incremental changes. I can do small habits. So I just picked one thing that I was going to focus on for that week, and then I compounded it week by week. So one of them was drinking a gallon of water a day. The next one was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which transitioned to 4 in the morning. The other ones was exercising regularly, journaling regularly, studying, reading, all of these things. I compounded them week by week, and I did that for 2 years straight until I could basically, a hot trend now is biohack. I could biohack around my disability and get enough systems in place that if I didn't tell you I had a disability, you probably would never guess.
By the way, if you guys are interested in real estate investing and you are in Canada, I wrote a book here called Real Estate Secrets Exposed. Learn how to actually make money virtually, which is cool, from the comfort of your home. Yes, it is possible if you understand the value and how to do wholesaling. And if you don't know anything about wholesaling, you need to grab this book. It's absolutely free. There's no page numbers. There's nothing else in there. It's just ready to go, though. Humble.ceo to grab your free copy. What an incredible story. So just powerful. So you had to create these, and you said for 2 years straight. So were you adding a new habit essentially every week to your regiment?
Yeah, and some of them dropped off intentionally. So I did them every week, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to try this and see if I like it. So I'm a big fan of mental toughness. So I went and auditioned for The Voice in 2018. I had no intentions on winning. Let's be real. I was just like, I hate to sing in front of people, so I'm going to go and do it. So one of my habits was to sing. So I did that for a very long time until I went and did it, but I dropped that off. But yes, I did a habit a week and compounded it week by week for about 2 years.
So what does that develop in you in terms of discipline, in terms of resolve as a human? Where does that move you to?
I think what it does for me, the big thing that I realized is a couple things. One, it allows you to be okay with trying something and not fully committing to it. I feel like a lot of people don't implement something because they don't know if they're going to like it. So I use this as a guinea pig experiment to see, what do I like? Not what makes me feel comfortable, not what do I like to do, but what do I like the result of? So I'm going to go and try to wake up at 5 in the morning and see if that's the person I want to be. Or I'm going to eat this new nutrition and try it out for a week and see if it fits in with who I want to be as a person. So I found it as an empowering thing to go and try new things. A lot of times we turn into adults and we stop researching things. We stop trying new things. We stop pushing ourselves to go and learn new skill sets. And we never get anything new because we never become anything new. So I personally really enjoyed that. On the discipline side of things, I think it was really great because it allowed for failure or to try something or to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. And that develops the ability to overcome things that maybe we thought we would never be able to do.
And in a world where people are so scared of adversity, they're so scared, they use it as a negative. They're so scared to try living in a lifestyle because maybe they might fail. Maybe they might be unhappy. We're so unwilling to take a short-term position and see if it makes our lives better because we're looking for this sense of permanence in what we do, right? It's no different than business. It's no different than other things. Well, if I do this, then I'm permanently stuck here. I'm permanently stuck here. And the truth is you're not. Because you're absolutely right. Until we go into an area and until we test it, until we really experiment with something, we can't truly know if it's for us. Like we go into business sometimes and we're like, yeah, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And maybe you get into a business, whatever it is, you know, a widget business, a real estate business, something. And then you get in there like, I don't even like this. This isn't even, this isn't my aptitude. And I thought it was. But what's interesting about your story is that you're willing to just, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to go sing on The Voice. See, that's precious. That's awesome. And now, had you ever sung prior to this in your life? Was that something that you had done habitually?
Only karaoke here and there. It always terrified the crap out of me. So it's like, you know what, I'm going to go and do it. And I did not make it past the first round, but I knew that I wasn't. Somebody that I like to study a lot is I like to study David Goggins, and he talks about going and callousing the mind, doing stuff that you hate to do or doing stuff that terrifies you. And I think a lot of times people don't tackle those big inner demons because they feel like they have to tackle them all the time. Like if I'm going to go run a marathon, I need to run a marathon all the time. No, you don't. Maybe you just need to do it once. Maybe you just need to do it for 1 week. Maybe you just need to try something new for a little bit to figure out who the hell you are. I was lost after all these surgeries. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to believe in myself. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know who I was then, and I was too worried about who I used to be before I got sick. And this habit a week was a great way to build systems, to build patterns, to build belief system, but it was also a great way to find myself. And I feel like a lot of people right now, with their whole world being dumped upside down with COVID-19, could use a lot of benefit right now during this downtime to try to figure out, who are we now? What does that look like now? Who do we want to become? And in order to do that, you're going to have to try some new things.
So would you say, Melissa, that a lot of people are living in their old self because they're not discovering their new self? Like your habits from 16 years old is the same habits you have at 45. You think people are like, they get to one point of maturity and they never develop further? Because that's my thought.
Oh, hands down. Yeah, we do the same stuff. We eat the same ice cream. We talk to the same people. We do the same exact things, or do not do the same exact things that we've always done. And it's a scientific fact on a lot of things. If you study people when they develop their subconscious programming, it's before they hit teenagers. So a lot of who you are and who you've sold yourself on being is somebody that you weren't even involved in making the conscious decisions on. It was programmed into you when you grew up. And I think a lot of times we don't question that.
Does it take some kind of inherent strength to be able to start thinking this way? Or does it take, the idea of adversity is that you're almost a victim of adversity. This is the way people describe this, right? So this happened to me. I became a victim. And as a result, I now have a choice of fight or flight mechanism. But is there some kind of inherent strength that people can tap into where they can start accelerating and pushing towards the things that they dream and aspire to? Or do you feel that until a moment of adversity truly faces them, until they get backed into a corner, people's fight or flight mechanism really never gets activated? Is it a choice, or is it more of a reflex, would you say?
I think it can be a choice. So I'm a firm believer in conscious decisions of adaptation. So I study people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who speaks exactly to what you're talking about, where he's all like, why wait until the crisis shows up to change your life and become the person that you want to be? Why wait? You don't have to wait first thing in the morning and make.
Oh, looks like we just lost connection here, but let me keep picking this up here. What she's saying is, my belief system is, why wait? If you know that the inevitable might happen and there's a probability there for you that at some point you might get backed up into a wall, why would we wait until that moment where we have to respond? Why not be in control of our circumstance and say, you know what, instead of waiting until I have to respond, I'm just going to respond today. I'm just going to push forward today in the things that I know I need to accomplish. See, the truth is, though, when we get back into that corner then and we don't have that choice any longer, we're going to be faced with the same inevitable decision that we're faced with perhaps today. So it's not about kicking the can down the road and saying, I'll never have to deal with this. The truth is, at some point, you may very well have to deal with it anyway. So allowing more time behind a decision doesn't make it any better. Allowing more time behind what you need to accomplish won't make your life any easier. So if you know that you're in business or you're trying to start a small business, maybe it's real estate, maybe it's something else. You're like, you know what? I'll make that sales call tomorrow. I'll start that business tomorrow. I'll read that book tomorrow. I'll get in shape tomorrow. The more time you add, statistically, the probability of you actually executing on that is less and less and less. So don't push it until tomorrow just because you can. Don't just pretend. Just assume as if you don't have a choice. Today is the only day. Today is the day that you have to push. And Melissa's story is so powerful because, like, for her, she hits 25 and guess what? Boom. That's it. That's it. Now you have to restart life. You have to restart who you are, what you know, what you believe. So it just, you know what, folks? It just so happened that this is on the same day. It's just on the same time with my friend Stefan, because you never know what tomorrow is bringing you. You never know what adversity you think you're avoiding. You never know what opportunity is in front of you, an opportunity to serve, to grow, to push. And the longer we don't act, the longer we decide to pull back and wait for it to happen to us, you know, truly, I think the more selfish we are. Because if at the end of the day, we're trying to accomplish amazing things and we want to help a lot of people, shouldn't you just start today? Shouldn't you just start right now? So we got Melissa back here. Melissa, welcome back here. So keep going on that thought process, please, because you were in the middle of saying something.
Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is a lot of times we can make that decision on ourselves to change and audit who we used to be or who we are. We don't need to wait until adversity shows up and punches us in the face. But one of my favorite quotes by Grant Cardone is he said that if you do not discipline yourself, the world will discipline you. And I can say that, you know, I use myself as a model and I try to, you know, be as modest as possible. I am definitely not perfect. And I did go through a lot of adversity with everything that was going on, but I also could have been more disciplined in myself before everything hit. So a lot of times if we're not disciplining ourselves, the world's going to shake us. It's going to expose us, and it's going to expose you through adversity, and you have to prepare for it.
So how does one begin to own their adversity and control it, or at least acknowledge it? Where does it start, do you think?
I'm a firm believer in not playing the victim card. So I do something that's called selective amnesia. And what that means to me is I take the adversity and I learn what I can from it and I apply it as soon as I possibly can, but then I forget what it was like to be friggin' bedridden or jacked up or all of that stuff. So I believe that people need to give themselves permission to hit the reset button, but also learn from your mistakes. Another thing that I try to do is I try to understand that with adversity comes humility. And once you realize that you're not the only person that's gone through scary crap, that's gone through trauma, that's gone through all of these things that you thought were going to break you, once you realize that, it's your strength. It's your ability to connect with other people, like your story, like you and I were connected through your story. It's a humility factor that exposes, like, yeah, maybe our adversities were a little bit different, but we've both gone through something that was intended to break us.
Yeah. And it truly does build character. I think that's the thing with adversity, that we don't embrace it and we're afraid of it, but it's almost we're afraid of our own character building and destiny. Because when you have to go through that, you're forced to make decisions that you don't like, that you don't feel like doing, but you know you have to do. You have to push. You have to make progress. So even though we don't want it, what we do want, we don't want the adversity, but we all want the result. We all want the result, which happens, which is that we grow, is that we become a better version of ourselves. We become more opportunistic. We become more sensitive. We become more aware of what's around us in terms of people, money, opportunities, relationships, our mindset, our spirit. Becoming more aware is so important, because I think so many people are living in just this sense of, well, you know, just this shallow naivety where we just don't even know what we don't know. So that's why we got all these people that got the sheep-like mentality. They're just like, you know, everywhere they go. And they listen to the news and the politicians and the agenda. And they're like, wow, you know, if you don't agree with it, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm a free thinker, friends. And I think sometimes it's important that you take a moment back and you say, am I thinking clearly? Am I thinking for myself? Am I thinking independently? Or am I just regurgitating somebody else's agenda that I've heard, and now I'm playing this game where I'm just spitting back out what I've heard? So I really believe it's important, folks. I believe it's so urgent for you that we recognize that you've got a distinct opportunity in your life, a calling. You've got a mission for your life. And I want you to recognize that it starts with you. You don't have to earn it. You're already inherently worthy. It's already placed in you. You just have to accept it and be willing to go down that path and keep unearthing some of those things that you call adversity that really might not be adversity, or might turn from whatever it's unearthed as a weed, it could turn into a flower. But you have to keep pushing forward. So Melissa, keep talking on this because this is such a powerful construct here. I'm sorry, we just lost your mic here for a second. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that your adversities, like if you can get past the mental unlock of like, whoa me, this is terrible, and you can realize the strength that comes from the shit that you're going through, it's a huge uniting thing. And what I try to encourage people to do, especially if you're feeling, really down in the dumps right now with COVID-19, I think that this is a real crisis. It's scary health-wise for me personally with pre-existing things, as well as the economic effects. But for people that are going through this right now, or maybe a different adversity, I want to remind you how much stuff you've gone through before and what you can do to repurpose that. See, the strengths that I learned when I was in rock friggin' bottom during all of these surgeries are the strengths that are going to get me through this current uncertainty, this current crisis. And what I mean by that is I was to the point after I had the last surgery where we still had to give up the car. We still had to give up the house. We moved to an apartment that we could barely afford, where I had to literally sell almost all of our furniture. And what it taught me how to be scrappy. It taught me how to fight. It taught me how to sell. It taught me how to connect with people. It taught me how to be vulnerable. You see, all of these crises that we go through in our past, whether it was a bad childhood, whether it was a bad employer, whatever it is, those are weapons now. You survived them. Own them. They are your weapons. They are your arsenal to overcome other adversities and to help other people with overcoming theirs.
Such a beautiful metaphor. It's almost like when you go through these adversities and you have to develop these skill sets and develop these disciplines, they become your armor. And yes, are you going to have to get into battles again? Of course. Are you going to have to fight for what you believe in? Of course. But now you're better equipped. You're better equipped to fight. So if you're looking at like, I'm a victim because I've gone through this adversity, you're assuming that you're not going to keep going through it. First of all, there's more things that are going to happen. The world is too it's too dimensional. There's so many different elements that happen that you're never going to be able to predict tomorrow. So instead of trying to predict, just prepare. Put on that armor. And you know what? So those are your two choices. You can get into battle and you can get hacked up a few times. Then you can start putting on armor, or you can just start putting on armor. It's that simple. So you talked about weapons. I love that analogy because you're right. We are going into a war. And even right now, the wartime business owners, the wartime thought leaders, it's about consolidating, not wasting, and focusing aggressively on the offensive. So a lot of people are contracting right now. Our team and people that we know are expanding their mind, their opportunities, their awareness, expanding their reach. They're trying to do more, not less. So how would you advise people here in this time? What should they really be focusing on, do you think?
I think they need to be focusing on who they're going to be cheating out of their greatness if they retract.
Ooh, keep going.
So for me personally, I remember after the last surgery, and I'm going to reiterate what happened here. So I went to California for these surgeries. This is after the brain surgery. This is after all of that stuff. And I was booked for another brain surgery where they were going to cauterize or potentially remove the back part of my brain. I found out by educating myself and talking to some of the top doctors in the United States that would have been the wrong surgery for me. So what I had to do is they had to flip me on my stomach as they injected blood and glue into my spinal cord. No painkillers, nothing, because they had to tell me, or I had to tell them if it got physically unbearable. If it did not, the surgery didn't work. If it got past that point, I could be paralyzed. So I remember after the last one that I had, I was in California completely by myself with my cat, because we could not afford for my husband to take more time off from work. And I was absolutely wrecked. I legitimately thought I was going to have a heart attack after that surgery. Like something went terribly wrong after one of them. And it wasn't the doctor's fault. It was just a very risky surgery. And I tried to get on disability. I tried to just pull the plug. I tried to just, say, you know what? I tried. I built all my business. I did all of this stuff. I hustled. I worked all these jobs. Screw it. It was just not meant for me. And what kept me going was the fact that I woke up during that surgery. What kept me going was I was still alive. But there was other people with my condition that did not make it through. There was other people with my condition that were lining up to get back to back to back brain surgeries. And I was doing it for them. I had to make it through that situation alive so I could advocate and help other people advocate for their own health. Obviously not a doctor, but to advocate for their own health as much as they possibly could. I had to make it through that for other people. And a lot of the times when people are going through adversities like this, they're not thinking about the people they're going to cheat out of if they don't make it through this situation that need them to make it through it.
What an incredible thought that it's not just for you. It's not a selfish thing. It's about other people at the end of the day, because you're 100% right. If you don't do it, if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't really fill your own cup, you can't expect to fill other people's cups. You can't expect to serve other people if you can't focus and inspire and do the things that you need to do. So I believe it starts with you, an economy of one. It starts with you need to develop the discipline, the habits, push forward. And if you come through adversity, hey, it makes for a better story. Let's call it what it is, right? We talked about this the other day when we were on your show. I believe a story is the most important thing a person has, because the story is what tethers you to another human being.
Yes.
So even in today's conversation with my friend Stefan here, the story is so powerful, and that's why it can't be forgotten. Your story will outlive you always. And if you keep pushing and develop this kind of story, the more adversity, the better. You know why?
Yes.
Because somebody out there needs to hear that story and say, if that person can do it, if Melissa could do this, she's now my Roger Bannister. She's now the 4-minute mile. She's now the person that I aspire to be like, the person that I want to push and I want to endure. A lot of people looking at David Goggins like this. If this guy could do it, I could do it. So there's nothing wrong with the adversity. Now, and you said it so beautifully, you said, own it. Own your adversity. What happens once you own it? What's the next step for you?
We came to Canada in 1991 with nothing but a will to thrive. They risked everything they had, left behind everyone they knew.
The only way out of the country was illegal, and the risk was huge.
I adopted the mindset that my parents had of faith and vision for my life. You see, they helped me understand that you get to decide what happens in this world. By the age of 30, I became a millionaire. I refused to accept scarcity, limiting beliefs, or someone else's excuses. So you want to know what the secret is? People ask me all the time, what's the secret? You want to know what it's going to take for you to succeed? Here's the truth.
I think the first step is owning it and then figuring out what good can you make out of it. So I found all of this stuff because I came from a pretty violent background. And I found all of this stuff because I was at the very bottom. I was massively depressed. I was at the verge of just calling it quits on everything. But the thing about depression, and maybe you guys are watching this right now and you're depressed, the biggest thing that depression gives you is a false sense of isolation. It makes you think you are the only one that's going through this stuff, that you're the only one that this stuff happens to. So the thing that I did with that was I realized I wasn't the only. And I set out on a mission to go and make sure other people knew that they were not the only. So if you guys are owning your adversities, you're owning everything that you went through, look and see, what can I do to repurpose this to help other people? Maybe people that are going through the same thing, maybe people that have experienced things that are worse, maybe people that experience things that are different. I don't know what it is. It's not a pissing match. The thing about adversity is to understand everyone goes through it. So once you realize that, it makes it so you're like, hey, I own this adversity. Other people have gone through different adversities, and I'm going to help them. by making sure I'm making an impact as much as I possibly can. So I'd say own it, and then ask yourself, what good can I do with it? Is it going back and helping people with my background? What exactly is it? And then repurposing it for that.
So awesome. I love that. So really doing something significant with it. And I think something happens. So I'm an immigrant, right? And I think when immigrants come here, we recognize that a lot of us came from the same background, the same adversity, if you will, right? Had to work to make it work, right? That's what it was. Whatever you had to do, you had to do. So when you grew up, you have this sense of not entitlement, but a sense of just thankfulness, gratitude, the fact that you can accomplishment, but you have to go and work for it. So I think when you have an adversity and you work through it, you get this sense of just thankfulness, of gratitude. And that gratitude is so powerful as a mover and a driver, because when you practice gratitude on a regular basis and you start developing faith mindset versus a fear mindset, you start saying, well, even if I stumble, I won't die. Even if I stumble here, I'll keep going forward. Even if I stumble, I'll keep pushing forward. And people say, well, what if it doesn't work out? And then you start believing, well, what if it does? What if this does work out? What if I do empower a lot of people? What if my adversity is a tool, a mechanism that I can use now, or that can be used in my story for somebody else's enlightenment, somebody else's awareness? So I think it comes down to perspective and awareness. I know what it's like to be in adversity, and a lot of other people know what it's like to be in adversity. And the sheer fact that we know that we're not alone, like you just said, that you're not an entitled personality or a person who you're the only one who's gone through this circumstance. Because I think that's what the entitlement means, is me. No, adversity means all of us. We recognize that we're not alone in adversity. And when you do that, there's almost a peace about it, because you recognize if somebody else can make it out, you can make it out.
Yeah.
So that's a driver for me. That's actually a positive driver, saying, you know, when I read a story, a biography, something, I say, you know what, this person's making it, I can make it. Or this person's pushing hard, I need to push harder.
Yes,
and,
100%.
You know, this conversation is so brilliant, and, you know, because I think it's very, very like tactful and helpful for folks who are out there. So if they're struggling in depression, you know, because I mean, a lot of folks out there might be, what can you know, other than recognizing and owning it, can you give us maybe some tactical steps on what they could do? Okay. We'll bring your back. So folks, if this is you, you know, like we talk about this idea of unearthing some of the doubts, fears, concerns, and issues that we have. And sometimes what we try to do is we try to plant new seeds on top of soil that has all this doubt and anxiety and fear and scarcity that breathes underneath it. And we're trying to plant that on top. And when these things resurface, it kicks out all the positive seeds that we plant. So if you're trying to plant consistent daily seeds, things of positivity, you're reading every day, you're working on your mindset, your body, your spirit, your relationships. At some point, I truly believe that we have to go and unearth some of these things that we've been really avoiding, some of these things that we've been just casting aside. And there's a lot of consequence of casting it aside. More anxiety, more fear, more scarcity. The thing that we don't want to touch, the thing that we don't want to deal with, is the thing that will keep coming back to bite us. Am I right, folks? If you're at home, the thing that will keep coming back and attacking us is the same thing. So can we really afford to ignore? That's the question I have. Okay. Can we really afford to ignore what's there? And I don't think we can. And I love it so beautifully that Melissa's saying is to own that adversity. Own it. Take ownership over it. Acknowledge that it's there. Hey, this is my adversity. It is here. I get it. I'm cool. All right. Like, I understand it's there, but what can I do today? Because I believe when you add more time, you're actually expanding the problem. I think we need to deal with it sooner, not later, right? More time is not what we need. So let's keep going on this, because you had some brilliant points. I wanted you to keep picking up your conversation there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure. Zoom kicked me out there.
We got you, girl. We got you. No worries.
I think we're talking about how a lot of times people think that they're the only ones that go through it. And I think the big thing is yes, a lot of people don't understand that other people's adversities can be a way to unite them. So sometimes I see people go into two different things. One, maybe they've overcame more adversity than the people that they're looking at. So they feel like they're the only, and they become isolative, and they kind of think that no one else understands them. Or I've also spoken to people that are like, you know, I haven't gone through a lot of adversity. I haven't experienced a lot of things, and people don't care what I have to say. I've seen speakers on both sides of the fence. And the big thing for me is I don't care what the adversity is. I don't care what it is. It is valid, first off, no matter what it is that you've gone through when you're watching this. And also, there's other people that you need to inspire through it. So you're not alone on this. You're not alone. You're not the only. And the big thing for me was realizing, like, I need to make an impact. I need to help people that don't have this disability overcome their mental blocks, because I know what it's like to feel like you're not who you used to be, or you don't know who you are anymore. And I can help them with going past their own mental unlocks. I can help people that have the same disability advocate for their care. There's other people that I need to make an impact with. So I think the first step to do that is you need to own it, understand what happened. 2, you need to repurpose it and see who you're going to impact. And then 3, you need to understand that you do not need to minimize your experience. In fact, I would not minimize your experience or anyone else's experience in order to make a positive impact with this.
So well articulated. When's the book coming out? Where's your book?
So I have one book that I wrote that's completely free, and it's an ebook of the top 3 habits I found throughout implementing a habit a week for those 2 years. And then right now I'm working on a life story book. And I think we should have the draft of that by the end of this year. So that's something that I've been terrified to write, to be honest with you. But YOLO, right? You only have so much time. You got to make an impact with it. And that's my big thing is, like, when I was not knowing if I was going to need another brain surgery, I didn't know how long things were going to last. I didn't know any of that stuff. I made a declaration when I was a teenager before I got sick, and then when I got sick later on in my life, that I was going to make an impact on this planet. So I try to remember that, try to remember what it's like to not know when your next day is going to be, and live with that urgency on a regular basis, even towards something that terrifies you, such as writing the book.
So there's a maturity that comes, I think, from adversity, and that's probably one of the things, is that it really forces you to think ahead, and really forces you to recognize that you might not have all the time in the world. You might not have, all the luxury in the world. You've got to make the hard decisions, and sometimes they're hard decisions that we simply don't want to make. And sometimes that's when, we become victimized to those decisions. Like, oh, I have to make these decisions, and we wallow in that sorrow. And then it leads to other consequences and issues there, mentally, fatigue, all these other problems. So once you conquer this thing, let's kind of put the spin on here. Once you conquer this, once you're moving forward, once you keep growing here, what's next for you? Because now you're doing some amazing things. Talk about what's going on in your life. Talk about what's next for you as a leader, as an entrepreneur, because it's just such a powerful story. And now that we've shared it with our audience, it's just, I think there's going to be so many people that are positively influenced by this.
Well, thank you. So my big goals that I write down regularly is that I cured chiari malformation. It's incurable currently. From my understanding, they did the first skull transplant about 2 years ago. I don't think it turned out well. I could be wrong. But I want to contribute and help out for that cure. I want to make that cure happen. I also want to be the female Tony Robbins, is what I say regularly. I want to help people reach their highest and best potential. My life mission statement is I want people to understand they can do anything that they put their minds to, regardless of other people's opinions, oppression, or suppression, and that people, and that you can go out there and make a difference. So I want a legacy out there to go and impact as many people as I possibly can, to help them with repurposing their hurt for good to the universe and good to the world, and reaching their potential. So those are a couple of my big lofty goals. I want to get my own television show. I want to reach Tony Robbins level, and I want to cure the neurological illness that almost took my life.
Wow. What a phenomenal, story, continuation of your story. And something brilliant about you that I've, that's something I heard before that I want to tie back in here. And it says that a lot of people are so focused on judging the rough draft of who they are that they can't even focus on the final edition. So, we're all still rough drafts of who we're intended to be. And the more that we keep pushing in our consciousness, our awareness, our self-discipline, our faith, the more we can keep seeing towards the end of that book. And it's just so beautifully said. And I think for you, one of these things with adversity is like, we just keep pushing, just keep pushing, just keep pushing. I got this rough draft. I'm going to keep pushing to get it to the end here. And I think what would really help folks at home is to stop trying to criticize that rough draft. If today you're broken, you're in a season of scarcity, you're in a season where, you're living in a period of just fear and doubt and shame and embarrassment and guilt. If you're living in that, that's a season. That doesn't have to be your life. What's happening, it doesn't have to represent your entire journey, but it may be a chapter in your book. And you know what? It may make for a pretty damn good chapter in your book too, because, you know, every dissonance eventually has a resolution. So I believe that resolution is up to you. It's a choice. So don't allow the dissonance to be the only story. Keep writing that book. And I think you keep pushing, you know, and the more dissonance, the more beautiful the resolve, like music. It's the same way. So just absolutely incredible. So for folks that are, they're at home that would love to keep following with you in your journey, where can they get a hold of you here, Melissa? What's the best?
Yeah, you can find me on all social media platforms at M Jackson Inspire. I do M Jackson Inspire because my first name is spelled very confusing, and it's a little bit easier to find me on there. And I mean, I try to document the journey. That's all I try to do. Is I said this when, you know, I was on Conquer the Crisis Summit with, you know, Brad Lee and Coach Michael Burt and all those people. I fall off the wagon, get ran over by the wagon's on fire. Like, I fall off all the time. I just try to get back up 24/7. So I never try to act like I've arrived. I'm just here trying to become my best version of myself and try to push myself to walk the talk on a regular basis. So you guys can follow me on that journey.
I love it. Such an inspirational story. And, you know, it's more relevant and more, you know, you become so grateful when you meet people that have gone through adversity, because it's just a reflection point and say, you know, thank God I was able to hear that. It's a ministry to me, being able to hear that, because I know it's a ministry to other people. So yeah, we connected at the, you know, Conquer the Crisis. And folks, you know, today, usually I'm pretty hard on you sometimes, right? And say, hey, get over it. Stop punking out. Stop being a wuss. Stop doing this. Stop doing this. But I recognize some people are struggling in life. Some people are just in a position where they don't know where to look for answers. They don't know. So reach out. Just please reach out. Reach out to us. Reach out to Melissa. Reach out. There's so many amazing people in the world that would love to just bend an ear and listen and give you a shoulder. And sometimes we fail to reach out because we think we're going to be ignored. But you know what? We see you. We recognize you. We recognize the adversity. We recognize, you know, where you're coming from. And you're not alone. So something so beautifully that you said, just you're not alone.
Hey, it's Ben Humble. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what my guest is talking about and you're getting massive value from it, then scroll to the bottom, open up the description, and follow them on social media. Support them, connect with them. Just scroll down there, click the link, and let's roll. Stay humble.
Make sure to subscribe to Ben on YouTube so you can stay up to date on everything Humble, featuring daily episodes of the Humble Podcast and weekly video content providing motivation, real estate strategies, and personal development for everyday life. Also, follow Ben on Facebook and Instagram for daily interactions. Check out humble.ceo and download a chapter of Ben's new book, From Communism to Capitalism, absolutely free.